it's Raquel Bowman here, and today I'm creating a page for Pink Paislee. I'm giving the 8.5 by 11 size a go again, and my focus for today is these gorgeous turn the page 2 by 2 little paper pads. So they're called swatch books, and they come in the pack of 2, and one of them is phrases and the other one is just pattern papers. So what I thought I'd do is I've printed a series of photos of my kids in 2 by 2 size as well, and I've chosen some of the coordinating or pieces from those paper pads that I thought would match either the colorings in the photo or the sentiment to match what it was about. The subject of my layout is that the kids both had big kid haircuts. So Jack has pretty much had all of his hair cut off, and Charlotte had a really good length cut off. So I wanted to document that. So I'm going to just take you along for the process. I'm enjoying this size. I've created one other layout this size, and I thought that this page could be the page that goes on the back of that layout, and it's around the same time of photos, so that will match perfectly. So I'm just going to get creating. My idea is I was first going to create a bit of a staggered grid, but now I'm thinking that I'll create more of a grid style because my photos, and it was a coincidence that I printed them the exact same size as the paper pad. I wasn't thinking about that when I printed them, but then as I was laying them out, I thought that it looked perfect being this way rather than staggered like this, for example, running down the page. So we'll see how we go. I'll get creating and take you along with me for the process. Okay, so what I did to begin with was I decided I wanted to crop out a little bit of the 8.5 by 11 size and back it onto one of the pattern papers in the Turn the Page collection. I really like the effect that the border gives on the 8.5 by 11 layout. So I flipped through some of the papers. I knew that because it's in a border, I could go quite a bold pattern and it still coordinate really well. And I loved how this paper here that I've grabbed, that's like a sunburst of all different colours, worked really well and was the same sort of print as that All Grown Up 2 by 2 paper pad square. So I thought that one was perfect. I cropped it down so that it was sort of centre of the paper. So I cut off sort of the left and the right side of the paper to make that starburst in the middle, I should say. So now what I'm doing is just arranging all of those 2 by 2 squares and the photos, and I'm just placing some embellishments and things on top. So I grabbed out that floral ephemera piece, and that way to go is actually fussy cut from one of the 2 by 2 paper pad, the phrase one. I thought that was really, really cute to add with these photos. This series of photos, I just love them. My son is just such a character, and my daughter is so gorgeous that when I do snap photos of them together, it's really, I can't get them to pose. They will not sit and smile. I get these really silly, cheesy grins if I do that. But when I let them relax a little bit, I just get the most classic photos out of them, that they're the sorts that I want anyway. So I'm just layering here and building upon those squares so that they're not too, I suppose, two-dimensional there. They've got some layers to them. So I've added behind the floral ephemera piece it's like, I think it was from the tag pack, and it's sort of just a square with a little hair on it. And then I fussy cut from one of the pattern papers that I'd actually used for another layout some floral, teensy tiny floral little flowers. And the reason that I did that was because if you've watched my videos, you know that I love those smaller embellishments as finishing touches. And because I've got the florals already on this page, I thought that they would be a cute little addition. So although they were tiny and small and sort of intricate to cut out, I really like how they look. They're a bit like a pattern paper enamel dot, I guess, in the purpose of how I've used it. What I've got in that bottom right corner is I felt like it was very heavy to that left side. So I've added a couple of tags to the page, and then on the top of one of those tags from the ephemera pack, I've added some of that gorgeous striped ribbon. It is so vibrant and pretty. It was a bit too thick, so I cut it in half so that I was still able to put it on to the top of the tag without it being too bulky. So once I'd cut it in half, I was able to then just staple it on. So I've sort of got the basics and the basis of how I want the layout to be. So what I did off camera was I actually just stitched around the edge of the page. I love the texture that brings to the page, and that you can then fold up the edges and just create a bit of extra detail. What I'm doing now is I create sort of a bit of a cluster to that top left corner, and that's because that all grown up is actually my title for the page, or what I'm going to be titling the page. So I've added a little tab from the sticker book, and I added that really easily just with a little bit of liquid adhesive behind the top of that 2x2 square piece. And then I'm using my T-square ruler just to get a guide, because I'm doing it in a grid style, and it's more of a structured grid style layout, not sort of a loose grid layout like I may have done before. I wanted elements that I am putting on the page, because there is, only those 8 main squares, that they were lined up so that neatly, and to look at, you can tell that they're a grid and that they're meant to be straight. So the T-square ruler helps a lot with that, and it just gives you a guide for what you can sort of butt up your paper against to make sure that it's straight. So now I'm building on some of those pattern paper squares from the paper pads. So as I said before, I've got that smaller square that I'm popped on top of that floral piece, and then I used some foam tape to pop up that ephemera. Now what I'm doing is just adding a little fussy cut leaf design as well behind there, just for a bit of extra detail. I love adding those sorts of little extra things that just finish off, groups of embellishments or clusters of embellishments. So I'm adding another little leaf detail there, as well as a fussy cut butterfly. Now that way to go piece, as I said before, was fussy cut from one of the 2x2 paper pad pieces, and then I found a 1 1/4, I think it was, inch circle punch, and I punched it out on a coordinating yellow pattern paper in the collection and added that behind. So it's sort of like one of those layered embellishments that you can buy, that piece that that cluster that I've sort of created there. Now I'm just using the liquid adhesive to add those little fussy cut flowers that I was talking about before. And when I've added those, I've only put the adhesive right sort of in the center, and I've used my fingernail just to bend those up to give them that little bit of depth and dimension so that they're not flat against the page. So I'm adding in those tags. I really felt like the layout needed that extra sort of cluster in that bottom corner. I think it just would have been too heavy on that one side otherwise. And in that area, I will add some journaling of just the date that happened, or these photos were taken. And of course, a page sort of isn't complete without any journaling on it either for me. So you'll see me add that to the page later. When I was fussy cutting those little flowers, there was also some leaves. So some of the bigger floral designs out of those smaller pieces that I cut out. I did cut some leaves to add that bit of extra detail. Now here's a little tip for you. If you've got a certain area that you want to add some journaling to and you're going to type it out and put it through a typewriter, what I did was I knew I wanted my journaling to fit within that 2x2 square. I knew that I was going to strip form, sort of cut it out, but what I decided to do to make sure that I didn't go out of that space was just trace around that 2x2 paper pad and make sure that when I was typing my journaling, I was staying within that piece. So that allowed me to, keep my journaling sort of to the point, I guess, because I knew I didn't have a huge space to work with, but also make sure that the length of the journaling strip was going to fit within that square. So that's just a little tip if you've got a specific size that you need to work with or width of space, that was a really simple way to add my journaling and know that it would fit. So I'm just cutting it out into how I want to present it on the layout, and then I'll go through and use my tacky glue in a fine line bottle to adhere it all down. So that's pretty much the finished layout. As I mentioned in my last videos on my channel, I'm really enjoying this size while I'm sort of getting back into crafting. I hope that you've been enjoying seeing these layouts as well. And don't worry, I'm not completely converted, but I am really enjoying it, I must say. So I'll be back soon with some more layouts. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the Pink Paislee blog, the link's below, to see more layouts using this new collection. Thanks everyone. Bye.